The news that Bloomberg just exclusively broke. The Supreme Court inadvertently today posting a copy of an opinion on its website that would suggest the court is poised to allow emergency abortions in the state of Idaho. Joe, this is a big deal, not final yet, as this is not a formal issuing of an opinion, but still suggests that the court in this case may be delivering a win for abortion rights.
That's right. And for Joe Biden, the day before the first presidential debate, the timing here is remarkable. Kaylee, we're in the midst of a 3-day tour here when it comes to opinions. We did expect and still do to get more tomorrow, but we thought the court was done for the day. We got 2 this morning, and this dropped a short time ago thanks to our team at Bloomberg News and at Bloomberg Law bringing this to us now. The question remains once again, will the court do anything formal? And we want to turn to June Grasso from Bloomberg Law, the host of Bloomberg Law here on Bloomberg Radio and TV. And June, it's great to see you here. I suspect you didn't think we'd be talking about this either after this morning's opinions were released. This is going to lead to a whole investigation. We have no idea how this was posted, right?
Right. It could have just been some administrative assistant by mistake posted it and then took it back. I mean, I'm sure there'll be an investigation into this, and hopefully you'll get more information than you did on the Politico leak of the Dobbs decision. But if, what we see is true, it's a huge decision, and it also affects other states like Texas that have similar laws. I mean, this case was so important that the trial judge had issued a ruling putting this law on hold and saying that, the emergency procedures could go forward. And the Supreme Court said, no, they put a stop to that. And then they decided to take the case without it going to an appellate court. So that's how important this is. And, it could show whether or not the federal law is going to take the place or supersede the state law, which is what the Biden administration argued in this case. They said, if you're taking, as Kelly said, you're taking Medicare funds, you have to follow the EMTALA law, and that provides for emergency room procedures of abortion if a woman's life is seriously at risk. And during the oral arguments, Justice Kagan was really I want to say she was emphatic about saying that, you don't have to wait until the woman's life is in jeopardy, is in threat, in order to have this procedure. And it was the oral argument, you couldn't tell which way the court was going to go. I mean, you knew that the 3 liberals were going one way and the 3 very conservatives were going the other way. But then the 3 in the middle, Chief Justice Roberts, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, and Justice Brett Kavanaugh, where were they? They were all over the place.
Well, of course, we'll await finding out for sure who the drafter of the final opinion is. But in what was briefly posted online, they indicated that the majority is going to dismiss this case as improvidently granted, which probably relates to what you were just speaking to, June, whether the court should have taken this up in the first place. But this is a kind of a pattern I've noticed emerge with recent opinions where the court doesn't seem to necessarily be deciding the merits of the case, but rather standing, as was the case in the social media Biden administration relationship ruling they made earlier this morning, and in the other abortion-related case, access to mifepristone, which they did rule in favor of. They did so on the grounds of standing. It doesn't seem that they're necessarily deciding the merits around these abortion rights, June.
You're right. Throwing this out as improvidently granted is another way to dispose of it. And it's because they're trying to get, 5 votes in order to decide the case. And in a lot of these cases, the easiest way is to say there was no standing. Now, the mifepristone case, there was no standing there. Everyone who saw that initially said, why do these doctors have the right to sue? And it's still going to go forward. States are still trying to sue over that. So in the mifepristone case, that was definitely no standing. But in the case today, they found no standing, and that, they could have gone either way. So it's an easier way for them to deal with it. But what happens is the lower courts don't get guidance, and we don't get information as far as the public to know where they stand on these issues. How far can the Biden administration go in correcting misinformation online now? We don't know that because the decision is off on a procedural ground. And I had a professor I talked to recently say that, lawyers can find a procedural reason for anything, which is true. You can find a procedural reason if you're looking for it, and they're looking for it, it seems. Yeah.
All right, June Grosso, host of Bloomberg Law, thank you so much for your instant analysis on this breaking news story exclusive to Bloomberg. The Supreme Court poised to allow emergency abortions in Idaho. We want to get more reaction now with a special guest, I'm pleased to say, who is joining us here in our Washington, D.C. studio. Dana Nessel, the Attorney General of the state of Michigan, is now joining us. Welcome to Balance of Power. Thank you so much for being here while you're here in Washington. Could I just ask you first about your reaction to the news Bloomberg has broken today, this opinion that seems inadvertently to have been posted on the website, but is a court ruling in favor of abortion rights, it seems, or poised to at least?
Well, fortunately in Michigan, in the wake of Dobbs, we had very restrictive laws that were on the books that were unenforceable. But in 2022, we passed the Reproductive Freedom for All ballot proposal, which, enshrined reproductive freedoms into our state constitution. So we haven't been worried about this particular situation in my state, but I've met with women in states with very restrictive bans all over the country. And I can tell you that women of reproductive age and the people who love them all around the United States are probably collectively sighing a breath of relief right now because of how incredibly scary it is to think that you could be in this situation where you need emergency medical care. You're facing the loss of an organ, your fertility is at stake, and you're literally looking at potentially dying and having physicians have to violate their Hippocratic oath and say, I can't treat you because I'm afraid of going to jail for it. So I think for women all across America, this is a victory if that is, in fact, an accurate assessment, what was on the website. It does give me some pause that now this is the second time in a few years that we're seeing something accidentally posted or distributed, and it makes me wonder what's going on at the United States Supreme Court right now. But, we've seen this exponential rise in both maternal mortality as well as infant mortality ever since the Dobbs decision came out. And hopefully, if this is a real ruling from the court, it will do something to curtail the number of deaths we've seen.
So are you encouraged then to see what is apparently forthcoming from the court, and I wonder if you think they should just come out with it today, following the ruling on mifepristone, maintaining access to the abortion pill, or are you discouraged that both, to Kaylee's point earlier, have been essentially rulings on standing?
Yeah, I have a theory about that.
Yeah?
I think that these are not cases that the high court wanted to hear. I think they were sort of forced upon them by incredibly conservative circuit courts of appeal that really have forced the hand now of the United States Supreme Court. And I've seen decision after decision where I don't think that the justices wanted to rule on this particular case at this particular time. I don't think that the majority of justices, and by that I mean 6 of them on the Supreme Court, have an interest in restricting Second Amendment related rights. They don't like, in general, the gun safety laws. They don't like the use of mifepristone, but these are poor vehicles that have come to them to allow them to further restrict abortion rights or gun safety measures or things of that nature. So what we're seeing is they are finding other ways to dispose of these cases without having to rule on the merits, and that allows them the freedom in the future to say, well, we're not contradicting a prior decision. We're not overturning any sort of precedent. We got rid of that case on standing, and that's what they're continuing to do.